Today we are going to race my Koenigsegg Jesko versus the brand new Corvette ZR1X. And if it ends up beating my Jesko, we're going to race it against my Rimac Nevera. That thing is so fast! That Corvette is insane.
On paper, this race should not even be close. On one side of the line sits the Chevrolet Corvette, a car that starts at around $230,000. On the other side sits a Koenigsegg Jesko, a Swedish hypercar that costs more than $3.5 million. Built by one of the most obsessive performance brands on the planet. That is roughly 15 times the price difference. And yet, when the lights went green, something happened that nobody in the crowd was fully ready for. By the end of the day, people were calling this one of the most shocking drag races of the year, and some Corvette owners were saying their car had just been banned from certain tracks for being too fast for its own class. So how does a Corvette, even a brand new hybrid-powered Corvette, end up lining up against a car that was built with one single purpose, to be one of the fastest production cars ever to exist? And what actually happened when these two machines launched side by side down the strip? Let's break it down. Started with the car nobody expected to be a problem. The Chevrolet Corvette ZR1X is not a normal Corvette, and it is not even really a normal ZR1. It takes the standard ZR1's twin-turbocharged 5.5-liter V8 and adds a front-mount electric motor, turning the car into a hybrid all-wheel drive monster. Combined, the gas engine and the electric motor produce a total of around 1,250 horsepower, an almost unbelievable number for a car that still wears a Corvette badge and is still, in theory, something a regular customer can walk into a dealership and order. To put that number into perspective, that is more horsepower than a Bugatti Veyron had when it first shocked the world over 20 years ago, except this time it is wrapped in a car that costs a small fraction of what most hypercars charge. Chevrolet has not been shy about proving this car's credentials either. Before this drag race ever happened, the ZR1X had already set a lap time of 6 minutes and 49.275 seconds around the legendary Nürburgring Nordschleife in Germany, making it the fastest American production car ever to lap that circuit, and quick enough to beat some serious European rivals, including the Porsche 911 GT3 RS. On top of that, Chevrolet's own official testing put the ZR1X's quarter-mile time at 8.675 seconds, a number that puts it firmly in hypercar territory, before it has even faced a hypercar. So this was never really a story about a normal Corvette punching above its weight. This was a purpose-built, factory-backed performance weapon, dressed in a body that still looks at a glance like something your neighbor could own. But even with all of that on paper, nobody expected it to be put directly up against a car widely considered one of the quickest accelerating gasoline cars ever built. That the Corvette ZR1X is the underdog with a secret. The Koenigsegg Jesko is a reigning champion that everyone in the hypercar world respects and a little bit fears. Built by the small Swedish manufacturer Koenigsegg, a company that has spent years chasing nothing but outright speed. The Jesko is powered by a 5.0-liter twin-turbocharged V8 that produces 1,280 horsepower running on normal gasoline, or a staggering 1,600 horsepower when running on E85 fuel. In its most extreme absolute form, the Jesko has been officially tested running the quarter mile in just 8.54 seconds, crossing the line at a trap speed of around 190 miles per hour, numbers that, at the time, made it the quickest production car ever recorded over that distance. The Jesko also rockets from 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 2.7 seconds, and its price tag reflects exactly how exclusive it is, with the car costing somewhere in the region of $3.5 million, depending on specification. This is a car designed from the ground up around one obsession: raw acceleration and top speed, with almost nothing else getting in the way. For most of the cars it has ever lined up against, the Jesko has been the one doing the embarrassing, not the one getting embarrassed. Which is exactly why, when word got out that a Corvette, even a 1,250 horsepower hybrid Corvette, was going to line up against this Jesko on a real drag strip, so many people assumed they already knew how it was going to end. The race itself did not happen on a quiet local track. It was organized as part of an event with the Hamilton Collection, bringing together some of the most expensive performance cars in the world for a day of straight-line racing at Rochelle Municipal Airport, a long, wide stretch of tarmac that has become a favorite spot for exactly this kind of high-speed showdown. To get there, the Corvette ZR1X was not driven. It was trailered for more than 4 hours to reach the venue, arriving alongside a lineup that included not just a Koenigsegg Jesko, but also a Rimac Nevera, an all-electric hypercar from Croatia, with a price tag of around $2.5 million and a reputation for embarrassing almost everything else on four wheels. Add it all up, and you have more than $6 million worth of Jesko and Nevera sitting on the tarmac, with a Corvette that cost a fraction of either of them rolled in alongside them. From the outside, it looked like the kind of lineup where the Corvette's job was simply to make the hypercars look good by comparison. Drivers walked around each other's cars. Cameras were set up along the strip. And the atmosphere was exactly what you expect when people who genuinely love the stuff get together with some of the fastest machines on the planet. Nobody, including some of the people running the event, expected what was about to happen once the Corvette ZR1X pulled up to the line next to the Jesko for the very first run. When the lights dropped for the first run between the Corvette ZR1X and the Koenigsegg Jesko, the ZR1X launched hard and immediately pulled ahead. As the cars rocketed down the strip, it became clear that something was not going to plan, and it was not the Corvette having the problem. The Jesko, despite having up to 1,600 horsepower available on E85 fuel, struggled to put that power down cleanly. Onlookers and commentators described the Jesko visibly skipping and fighting for traction, its rear tires unable to find the grip needed to translate that enormous power into forward motion. The Corvette, by contrast, launched cleanly and stayed composed all the way down the strip. By the time both cars crossed the finish line, the gap was not subtle. The ZR1X ran a 9.66 second quarter mile, even with less than ideal track conditions, while the Jesko's best run of the day came in at 9.8 seconds, nearly 0.2 of a second slower, and well off the kind of numbers a Jesko is normally associated with. 0.2 of a second might not sound like much on paper, but at these speeds, it is the difference between crossing the line comfortably ahead and watching another car disappear into your mirrors. People at the event were blunt about what they had just watched. The general reaction was that the Corvette had made a $3.5 million Koenigsegg look slow, a sentence that would have sounded like nonsense just a few years earlier. The ZR1X was praised as feeling well-planted and exceptionally well-built, composed and predictable in a way the more temperamental Jesko simply was not on that particular surface, on that particular day. But the day was not over yet, with the Jesko beaten. There was one more challenger waiting, a car many consider be in a different league entirely. Having just beaten the Koenigsegg Jesko, the Corvette ZR1X rolled back to the line for what was supposed to be the real main event, a head-to-head against the Rimac Nevera. The Nevera is an all-electric hypercar with a jaw-dropping 1,914 horsepower and an officially recorded 0 to 60 time at just 1.74 seconds, numbers that place among the quickest accelerating production cars ever built, regardless of price or powertrain. If the Jesko was supposed to be the Corvette's toughest test, the Nevera was supposed to be the moment reality kicked back in. And in one sense, it did, but not in the way most people expected. When the lights went green, the Corvette ZR1X launched hard once again, and in a genuinely stunning moment, it actually edged ahead of the Nevera and crossed the finish line first. For a brief moment, it looked like the underdog had done the impossible twice in one day. However, once the official timing slips came back, the full picture became clear. While the ZR1X crossed the line first in real time, the Nevera had actually posted the quicker elapsed quarter-mile time, beating the Corvette by roughly 1/20th of a second, a gap so small it is barely perceptible to the human eye. In drag racing terms, this is sometimes the difference between reaction time and raw elapsed time, and it meant the result was, depending on how you look at it, either a Corvette win or Nevera win. Either way, the takeaway was the same. A Corvette that cost around $250,000 had just beaten a Koenigsegg Jesko outright and pushed a $2.5 million Rimac Nevera to the absolute limit, close enough that the difference came down to fractions of a second. Step back from the individual numbers for a moment, and the bigger picture becomes hard to ignore. For decades, this level of performance, sub-9 second quarter miles, hypercar beating acceleration, Nürburgring lap times that humiliate established sports cars, was something reserved almost exclusively for cars costing millions of dollars. built in tiny numbers by manufacturers with names like Koenigsegg, Bugatti, and Pagani. The Corvette ZR1X did not just compete with that world. It walked into it, beat a long-standing speed icon outright, and nearly beat one of the most extreme electric hypercars ever built, all while costing somewhere between a tenth and a 15th of what its rivals cost. For Chevrolet, this is not just a viral moment. It is a statement. It tells every other manufacturer and every hypercar owner watching from their garage that the gap between attainable performance cars and unattainable hypercars is shrinking faster than almost anyone predicted. For Koenigsegg and Rimac, it raises an uncomfortable question that this video has already started asking out loud. If a hybrid Corvette can do this on a random afternoon at an airport drag strip, what exactly are people paying an extra few $1 million for? The Corvette ZR1X did not just win, or nearly win, 2 drag races on one day. It may have just rewritten what people expect a 6-figure car be capable of, and forced 2 of the most respected hypercar brands in the world to answer for themselves on camera in front of everyone watching it on paper. A Koenigsegg Jesko running on E85 with 1,600 horsepower should never lose a straight-line race to anything, let alone a car costing a fraction of its price. So, what actually went wrong? The answer comes down to a combination of factors that have very little to do with raw power and everything to do with putting that power down. The Jesko is a rear-wheel drive car, meaning all 1,600 horsepower has to go through just 2 tires that need to be at the right temperature to generate enough grip for a clean launch. On a cool morning at an airport runway, with multiple cars taking turns down the same strip, getting those tires into their ideal temperature window is far from guaranteed, especially for a car as sensitive to setup as a Jesko. The Corvette ZR1X, on the other hand, sends its power through all 4 wheels, with the electric motor on the front axle, helping the car find traction the moment the light turns green. In drag racing, that first half second off the line often decides the entire run, long before either car reaches its top speed. Commentators at the event pointed out exactly this, describing the Jesko visibly skipping across the tarmac, unable to hook up, while the ZR1X simply squatted down and went. It is a reminder that horsepower numbers on a spec sheet only tell part of the story. A car with less power but smarter traction management can, under the right conditions, beat a car with hundreds more horsepower, simply by getting that power to ground first. This was not the first time the Corvette ZR1X had stepped into the spotlight against a heavyweight rival. Just weeks earlier, at the TX2K26 event, often described as the Super Bowl of street car racing, the ZR1X lined up against another American legend, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170. The Demon 170 had built its own reputation as the most extreme factory drag car ever sold by an American manufacturer, a purpose-built quarter-mile machine with numbers that made it the benchmark for years. In a head-to-head run filmed by the Drag Times YouTube channel, the ZR1X crossed the finish line with a trap speed of nearly 157 miles per hour, while the Demon 170 came through at just over 149 miles per hour, finishing in 9.305 seconds. For a car that Chevrolet still sells through regular dealerships, beating the Demon 170 in a straight line was already being treated as a huge moment for brand before this Jesko race even happened. Looking at both results together, a pattern starts to form. The Corvette ZR1X is not just fast for a Corvette, and it is not just fast compared to other Chevrolets. It is now beating some of the most respected names in 2 completely different worlds, America's most extreme muscle car, and one of the most expensive hypercars money can buy. Within the same few weeks, IT did not take long for clips from this race to spread across YouTube, Reddit, and car forums. On Corvette Forum, ZR1X owners and enthusiasts dissected the footage frame by frame, with some pointing out that the track surface looked unusually low grip, even by airport runway standards, which only made the Corvette's launch look even more impressive by comparison. Other commenters raised an interesting side note that several drag strips had reportedly started restricting cars with trap speeds above roughly 150 miles per hour from running, for safety and track certification reasons, a limit that both the Jesko and the Demon 170 can comfortably exceed. In other words, some of the fastest cars in the world are now running into a new kind of barrier, not a lack of power, but a lack of places willing to let them run at full strength. Reaction videos appear within days, with car enthusiasts from different countries reacting live to the footage, Many of them audibly stunned at the moment the Jesko's tires broke loose while the Corvette simply drove away. For a brand that has spent decades fighting to be taken seriously next to European exotics, this kind of reaction, genuine shock from people who know cars, is exactly the kind of attention Chevrolet has been chasing. If the standard ZR1X can do this, the obvious question becomes, where does Chevrolet go from here? The Corvette lineup has grown dramatically over the past few years, from the base Stingray, up through the Z06, the hybrid E-Ray, the track-focused ZR1, and now the ZR1X sitting at the very top. Each step up that ladder has closed the gap to genuine hypercar performance a little more, and the ZR1X effectively closes it completely, at least in a straight line. This raises real questions about what an even more extreme version might look like down the road, whether that means a lighter, track-only variant, an even more powerful hybrid system, or simply Chevrolet leaning harder into marketing the ZR1X as a genuine hypercar class product, rather than just the top trim of a sports car. For rival manufacturers, the message is hard to miss. If a car built on a production line alongside regular Corvettes can humble a $3.5 million hypercar on a random afternoon, the traditional gap between attainable performance and the hypercar elite is no longer just shrinking. In some areas, it may already be gone to the end of the day. What happened on that runway was more than just another viral car video. It was a real, measurable result. Times on a board, cars crossing a line, that showed a $250,000 Corvette beating a Koenigsegg Jesko outright, and coming within a hair of beating a Rimac Nevra as well. Whatever happens next, whether Koenigsegg responds, whether Chevrolet pushes the ZR1X even further, or whether another challenger steps up to take a shot at this Corvette, one thing is clear: the conversation around what a hypercar really is has changed. If you enjoyed seeing a Corvette humble a multi-million-dollar hypercar, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more head-to-head races like this one, and let us know in the comments which car you think should take on the ZR1X next.